I always start off by asking, have you ever bought a gift for somebody and when it came time to wrap it, you couldn't make it fit in a box? No matter how you twist and you turn that gift, you just can't make it fit? It doesn't mean it's not a good gift. It just means that sometimes we have to get creative with the way that we wrap it. Well, ministry is the same way. Sometimes we get it in our minds, in order to be a good Christian or in order to be a good church or a good pastor, we need to meet people, we need to share the gospel with them, we need to lead them to Jesus, and then we need to plug them into this great discipleship program. And that's beautiful. When we get to be a part of that, that's fantastic. But the truth is it's very rare when we get to be a part of that entire package. Well, I had fallen into this trap believing that in order to be a good pastor, I had to do all these little steps or I just wasn't doing my job. Well, God got a hold of me one day and we felt like we were going through a change and we thought it's time to step down and maybe go to a different church. So we began to pray about it and he gave us one word: pajamas. It made absolutely no sense. We didn't know of any ministry out there that had anything to do with pajamas. And so we began to pray. And we prayed for an entire year. Now, when God tells you something and then you hear nothing, you begin to question if you heard from God at all. And that's where I was at. Now, I'm a mom of 4, so I pray a lot in the shower because I get about 10 minutes uninterrupted in there, you hope, before somebody pops in and says, hey. And so I was praying in the shower, and I just said, Lord, if you're not going to tell me what this is, give me something to call it. And he said, Pebbles, you're missing the point. It's not about the pajamas. I'd like to play a video for you now that shows you a little bit more of what God showed me that day.
The lights go out all around me. One last candle to keep out the night. And then the darkness surrounds me. I know I'm alive, but I feel like I've died. And all that's left is to accept that it's over. My dreams ran like sand through the fist that I made. I try to keep warm, but I just grow colder. I feel like I'm slipping away. After all this has passed, I still will remain. After I've cried my last, there'll be beauty from pain. Though it won't be today, someday I'll hope again, and there'll be beauty from pain. You will bring beauty from a pain. My whole world is the pain inside me. The best I can do is just get through the day. When life before is only a memory, I wonder why God lets me walk through this place. And though I can't understand why this happened, I know that I will when I look back someday and see how you've brought beauty from ashes and made me as gold purified through these flames. After all this has passed, I still will remain. After I've cried my last, there'll be beauty from pain. Though it won't I still will remain. After I've cried my last, there'll be beauty from pain, though it won't be today. Someday I'll hope again, and there'll be beauty from pain. You will bring beauty from my pain.
Pebbles, you're missing the point. It's not about the pajamas, it's about what they represent. In those dark times, late at night, when they're afraid, I will be their light. My heart broke that day. The way that I see people, the way that I see ministry has forever been changed. But at the same time, I was so very excited because I had been praying for a full year and I finally had this piece to the puzzle. So I got out of the shower and I ran down the hall. I told my husband, Darren, everything that I felt like the Lord was laying out for me that day. And then the next 2 days, I'd get a new piece to the puzzle, and I'd go running back down the hall, and I would say, okay, Darren, we're going to call this person, and we're going to do this. And at the end of the third day, my husband said, Pebbles, you're just going to have to quit showering. This is just too big for us. We can't do this. But we stepped out, and in faith, we began to see God work. What we had learned over the course of that next week was that in the state of North Dakota alone, 3,583 children were seen for physical abuse, sexual abuse, and neglect. That number went up to 4,010 the next year and steadily climbs each additional year. At Project Ignite Light, we believe one is too many. We also learned about what's called a child advocacy center. They're strategically placed across our country. There's about 800 in our nation. North Dakota has 4, one in Bismarck, one in Minot, one in Grand Forks, and one in Fargo. When a child of extreme child abuse is removed from their home, they are taken to their nearest child advocacy center where they undergo a medical exam. They're stripped down. Their wounds are photographed and documented. And then they're led into another room where they begin to give an interview. And they share some of the most embarrassing and difficult details, usually involving people they truly care and love about. It's not an easy day. As I sat down with the medical staff and we asked questions and they would answer them for us, one of the nurses said, unfortunately, due to the abuse, we sometimes have to confiscate their clothing for evidence. And as a mother, I was a little bit shocked, and I said, well, what are they wearing out? What are you sending them into foster care in or back home, depending on who the perpetrator is? What do they wear out of here? And she said, well, unfortunately, we don't have much on hand, but as a staff, we'll just kind of scramble. And if we can find something for them, fantastic. And if we can't, we send them home in a hospital gown. And we felt like it added to the humiliation of a difficult day. So we said, no child in the state of North Dakota should ever be sent home in a hospital gown ever again. And so we put this together. We call it a bag of hope. Everything in it is brand new because these children already feel used. We know that they've been given the worst of the worst, and we believe they deserve the best of the best. And so we make sure that we strive for quality over quantity. Every bag costs our organization about $50 to put together, and we hand these out completely free to the children and the medical staff. We just simply want to be there on a difficult day. Everything in the bag meets a physical need, an emotional need, and a spiritual need. That said, we don't put any religious items in this bag because we're going off a verse in 1 John 3:18, which says, do not merely say you love one another with your words and your tongue, but show it in action and in truth. We simply want to be there to show the love of God when those closest to them couldn't. And we trust that the Holy Spirit will take over where we have to leave off. And He always does. And I'm going to walk through it with you now. And I'm going to go quickly through it because I also have a message that I want to share with you today. So if I talk a little fast, please feel free to come out and see me, ask any questions that you would like. One of the first things that they get is their toothbrush and their shampoo and conditioner. Now, a lot of these kids just physically come in dirty. Now, if you see a dirty little kid on the street, it does not mean they're being abused. My son always has a milk mustache. His jeans are always ripped. If you see a dirty little kid, it's probably just Toby running around. So don't automatically be like, I have to help this kid. But the truth is hygiene is not always the most important thing in these homes. And so we wanted to give them a fun way that they could get clean, they could wash up. It's also a great piece for transition time. When kids come into foster care, a lot of times they're just afraid to go to bed at night, and this has made it a really fun way and exciting for them to go ahead and want to get ready for bed. And so that's just a whole nother unique way that God works. Emotionally, when we go through something, and it's bad, we just physically, emotionally, spiritually, we just feel yucky. And these kids feel that. And so we also just wanted them to know that God could cleanse whatever they've been through. Next, they get a fruit snack and a water bottle. Now, when we are hungry, we aren't able to focus very well. Hopefully, you all ate before you came, so you're actually hearing what I'm saying to you today. If you haven't, you're currently thinking about lunch. It's going to be a while. Sorry. But for these kids, we want them to focus because they have to answer a lot of tough questions. There's also a verse in Proverbs 27:7 that says, when a man is hungry, bitter food tastes sweet. But when he's full, he despises even honey. And what that means is when we're desperate for something, we're going to take anything we can get, even if it's harmful for us. And these kids are like that. They're going to take anything they can get because they just want to be noticed, even if it's hurtful. But if we're full of good things like God's love, it's enough to sustain us. Then they get their flashlight. Now, unfortunately, a lot of abuse happens at night when the family is home and stress goes up, or when the lights go out and people think nobody is watching. And so we knew that these kids were afraid of the dark. We knew we wanted to give them something like a nightlight, but God made it very clear to us that these kids also lack control over who they spend time with, what they're going to wear, where they're going to sleep, what they're going to play with. They lack control of everything around them. And so we wanted to give them something they could control, even if it was as simple as a flashlight. Do not gloat over me, my enemy. Though I fall and I will rise. Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light. Next, they get their pajamas. Now, even if a child's clothing is not confiscated and they go into foster care, unfortunately, they just don't have many belongings. And so we knew that we wanted to give them a new pair of pajamas that still had the tags attached that was just for them. And then their foster parents could wash their clothing during the evening while they sleep and then put it back on them the next day until they're able to get them more things. Unfortunately, due to some of the abuse, as I mentioned, the clothing can sometimes be confiscated, and we found it very important that these kids were able to walk out in something that was brand new and with dignity. We always use loose-fitting two-piece pajamas. We never use the footies. Imagine if you have been molested and all of a sudden you're in a home that you don't know and you have to strip down every single time you need to use the restroom. It just leaves you feeling vulnerable. Kids of abuse like to hide their bodies, so we always make sure that we look for something that is loose-fitting and is more modest. So we have a lot of rules to the pajamas that we actually use and put in the bags. We keep those all on our website. I know it sounds like we're being picky, but when you come from a healthy home, it's hard to understand these feelings that these kids are going through, and we're just so thankful that God revealed so much to us. We always make sure that we tuck their little delicates on the inside. It just allows us to keep a little piece of dignity intact for these kids. But what is so important is this pair of pajamas is a 3T. It would go out to a little girl around 3 years old. And it's one of the most common ages that is seen for sexual abuse. This tiny pair of pajamas is more than a beautiful set of PJs. This represents a person. Next, they get their book. We use You Are Special by Max Lucado. This is our Bible for us. Metaphorically, it's an incredible book. The reason we chose it is it says, remember, Eli said as the Wimmick walked out the door, you are special because I made you, and I don't make mistakes. The kids we serve are told every day that they're unlovable, that they're not wanted, and that they're a mistake. And we want them to know that God has a purpose and a plan for them, just like each of us. Next, they get their fleece tie blanket. Now, we always say at Project Ignite Light, if you want to change the world, consider making a fleece tie blanket. And that may sound cheeky, but I'm just that kind of girl. And we have seen it over and over that anything we do, anything we say, good or bad, has the ability to change the way people around you see their world. You have the power to change somebody's view of the world around them by simply doing something kind. Over and over, we hear this blanket is called my safe blanket. That's my safe blanket. That's not a name our staff has given it. It's the name that children who receive it call it. And we've been shocked because these kids who don't know safety in their own home, that in itself is a foreign concept. They feel safe under this blanket that somebody took the time to make for them and pray over for them. That's the power of God. Simply by making a blanket. Now, men, we always say you are not exempt from this project because we need a lot of hands to make this happen. And a lot of times people automatically go, oh, that's a great thing for women's ministry to do. But here's what happens. It's a perfect marriage when men and women get together to make these blankets. Because women will look at this and we'll go, oh, that fleece, that's my perfect blanket. That's my favorite. That one is my favorite. And then the next one will come along and we'll be like, no, this one's my favorite. That's just how women are. Men, you see this blanket and you go, there's got to be a faster way to do this. Every single time we hear, okay, there's more efficient ways, we can be knocking these out in a half hour, go boom. We need you both working together to make this possible. And if I can be very honest with you, men are still the number one victimizers. We need solid Christian men who will come alongside and spiritually say, I'm going to stand in that gap and I am going to be a representation of what an earthly father should look like. I need spiritual men to stand up and help in this ministry. Just like God, it comforts us. And then they get their bag. Now imagine you've been told that you've done nothing wrong, yet law enforcement is removing you from your home and they're throwing all of your worldly possessions into a trash bag because it's the first bag that they can find. That's what it's like for a foster kid. And unfortunately, you probably aren't going to go into one foster home. You're probably going to be moved about to 7 foster homes. That's the average. We wanted to make sure that these kids had a really nice bag that they could move home to home to home from, that didn't leave them feeling like they're garbage. Just like God, it's full of good things. To date, we've given out almost 8,000 bags over the last 6 years in North Dakota, Minnesota, and South Dakota at $50 a bag, handing those out completely free to the children and medical staff. That is a testimony to what happens when God's people come together. We can do amazing things. I simply could not do this on my own. We're helping on average of right now 225 kids a month. 225 pairs of pajamas, 225 blankets. I get to be the face, but you're the hands that make it possible. One of the things that people always say is, I just don't think that this is something that I could do. And to be honest, it's not something I could do either if it weren't for God. So we have 3 areas of need. One is financial, just the root of all ministry. I don't know any pastor who gets into ministry because they like to ask for money. It's just not fun. But we need it. And I've seen our first $150,000 check. I've seen our first $300,000 check. I've never seen a $500,000 or $1 million check. So if any of you want to take care of that, it would really help me to be able to believe for something bigger. So that would be fantastic. We need your finances. Number 2, I need people who will pray. I hear a lot of terrible things. My kids hear a lot of terrible things. We know things about this world that we should not know. And I can't do it if you don't pray for me. We're on the road a lot. We're tired. Our entire lives revolve around this ministry. We need your prayers for strength, for health, her mental capabilities. We need your prayers. The children, the medical staff, they need your prayers. They see far worse things than I see or hear. It's a high burnout field. Social services for when to intervene and when not to intervene. Pray for this ministry. Pray for this demographic. We need it. And third, I need people who can make blankets. You pretty much can't screw it up, I promise you. We can fix almost any mistake that comes in. In fact, we've only had one blanket to date that we haven't been able to fix. And we did fix it. It's just by the time it was fixed, it was so little, it was more of like a dog bed. And so really just step out in faith and make a blanket. Over and over, as people hear about the provision of Project Nightlight, they're always surprised. And I always meet two types of demographics. I either meet the ones who say, you know what, it's like you have this little magic genie in a bottle and things just appear to you. And then I get like the other people who fully comprehend that God is a God who provides, and they understand that when you step out in faith, God just works. And so I want to share with you today a message that really points directly to how God provides and how we can ask him to provide for us in confidence, knowing that he will step in and take over where we just don't have the abilities. And I have to say, I found it a little ironic when God gave me this message, because I know up here in the Bakken, you guys are probably sick and tired of hearing about oil. So when God said you're going to preach about oil, I just was like, I honestly was laughing, but I was in the shower, so I knew it was from God and I was going to do it. So I'm going to read the passage for you. It says, "One day the widow of a member of a group of prophets came to Elisha and cried out, 'My husband who served you is dead, and you know how he feared the Lord. But now a creditor has come, threatening to take my 2 sons as slaves. What can I do to help you?' Elisha asked. 'Tell me, what do you have in the house?' 'Nothing at all except a flask of olive oil,' she replied. And Elisha said, 'Borrow as many empty jars as you can from your friends and neighbors. Then go into your house with your sons and shut the door behind you. Pour olive oil from your flask into the jars, setting each one aside when it is filled.' So she did as she was told. Her sons kept bringing jars to her, and she filled one after another. Soon every container was full to the brim. 'Bring me another jar,' she said to one of her sons. 'There aren't any more,' he told her. And then the olive oil stopped flowing. When she told the man of God what had happened, he said to her, 'Now sell the olive oil and pay your debts, and you and your son can live on what is left over.'" Can I just tell you how many times we have seen God provide in miraculous ways? And it all points to the 3 things that I found in this passage. Number 1, if you want to see God-sized provision, you need to make your needs known. If you're not willing to tell somebody about the needs that you have, it's going to be really hard for other people to step in and help you with those needs. You need to be willing to share that with other people. Sometimes we think that we're more spiritual if we don't tell people about a need, because we just want to see if God will fill it, if he notices us. This RV was provided to our ministry because our family traveled so much and we were staying in people's homes to save money so that we could use the money we were raising to help children. So we would stay in people's homes. Well, we're a family of 6. That's not the easiest thing to put up a family of 6 on a moment's notice. And it's not very easy to get little ones to settle down when they're in a different home every weekend. And so the Lord put it on our hearts to begin asking for an RV. God gave us not only 1 RV, he gave us 3. This is the one that we use because it's got bunk beds in it. It has an overhead bunk in it. It's amazing. I never would have dreamt. In fact, when we first got it, I hated parking it in front of my house because it actually cost more than my house. And so I was really a little bit like, "Whoa, what are my neighbors thinking?" God provides in large ways. What's the next one? This truck and the trailer. That's a custom 48-foot trailer with the side folds down into a stage. We use this as a mobile marketing vehicle so that we can travel the country and have people come through and pack bags and see what it's like and see how easy it is in hopes that they'll want to begin a Project Ignite Light in their community. The truck that is pulling it Both of these pieces were donated. We are a debt-free ministry. We don't take on debt, which is actually another interesting point about this story. At the very beginning, the reason this woman's in trouble is because her family had debt, but that's a whole nother day. I'll come back. And so we'll make sure that we should that next time. But we are a debt-free organization, and we don't do debt because we want to focus on helping children versus being tied up in debt. And so this vehicle that you're seeing here was provided debt-free so that we could travel and share what we were doing with other states. And this truck we found the day before we had to pick up the trailer, which we had just gotten the money on Sunday for this truck, found the truck on Monday with the exact hitch that we needed to pull that trailer 40 miles away so we could go pick up this trailer on Tuesday. God provides in huge ways. But have we never put it out there that these were needs? This building, this is our new office headquarters. It's a 42,000 square foot building on 40 acres of land. That shop in the back holds the truck, the trailer, the RVs, valued at $3.2 million. We purchased it for $200,000. God provides. The day we submitted the offer in faith that we could walk away if we did not raise the cash before closing, we submitted it. The next day, I got a call from a gentleman who said, "Pebbles, let's go do coffee." I said, "Yes, sir, let's go do coffee." We sat down. We had coffee. He said, "Tell me what's going on. Tell me about the building." I told him. He said, "Where are you in negotiations?" I said, "Sir, currently we're at $260,000. That's $200,000 for the building, $60,000 for 2 additional log cabins that we put out on the property." And he said, "You got to be more like 360 or something." And I said, "No, sir, we're at 260. And he said, "Pebbles, we're going to buy you a building today." God provides. If you have a God-sized need, share it with the people around you. When you share the need, this house, this one still chokes me up because this one just arrived on Friday. See the little cabin in the back? My family of 6 and my very large golden retriever have been sleeping in an identical cabin to that one in the back. Currently, 2 of our other employees live in this one behind in the picture. 400 square feet, my family's been living in it for 1 year. I have not had a bedroom door in a year. I actually slept on a bunk bed up until like a month ago, which I haven't done since I was 9. And so I was sleeping on a bunk bed in a cabin, 432 square feet, 6 of us, large golden retriever. Somebody called me up and said, "Hey, Pebbles, are you still living in a 1-room cabin?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Come out, pick out any house on the lot. It's going to be yours." And they delivered it Friday. God provides. He cares about your needs. Whether it's ministry or personal, God provides. But you have to be willing to tell other people what that need is. The second thing I love about this story is she used the people around her. God said, "Go out, tell all of your neighbors, tell all of your friends." She used her sons. She enlisted the help of everybody around her to see God-sized provision. Sometimes it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of helping hands to see God's provision come to be. That's how it is in our ministry. This is a blanket event. We had 1,000 blankets made in 24 hours. An entire community just in Watford City came together to do this. We do it once a year. 1,000 blankets. The first time the pastor said to me, "Do you think we could make 400 blankets in 24 hours? I laughed. And I'm a dreamer. And I laughed. We're now making 1,000 blankets. This was 1,000 blankets in 24 hours. It's phenomenal, but it took a lot of hands to make it happen. You need to enlist the people around you. This is our third point. Sometimes you have to help yourself. We are in the process of developing our own pajama line. We believe that if we develop this pajama line, we can begin to sell pajamas across the nation. It'll help fund our head office. And then for every pair we sell, a pair of pajamas will go into one of our backpacks. And so we're working to develop this pajama line. The only issue is I don't even have the funding yet. But I'm doing the work. The cute little blonde is my younger sister who's single and available, and she's 30 and successful. And so she flies out from LA and donates her time to our ministry to help me because she's on the corporate side of the world. And so she comes out and helps me, and we are currently working because we know that God will provide, but I still have to do my part. This widow had to run around and gather as many jars as she could so that God could provide a miracle. And what's interesting is when she quit, when she ran out of the jars that she collected, if she would have collected one more, God would have filled it. Because it says in the passage, hand me another jar. Son says, you're out. Then the oil stopped flowing. Not the oil stopped flowing after the last jar was filled. When they realized they didn't have any more jars to fill, that's when the oil stopped flowing. You are going to have to help yourself. Here's a list of our current needs that we have. If you have the capabilities of helping us with those in any ways, I'm just being biblical. I'm putting the need out there. Come talk to me if you can help with it. But currently, every single one of those things on that list, we're already working on because we are believing God for the provision. Some of you right now have a personal need, and you just think God doesn't see you. You think God doesn't care about those needs you have. He does. God did not have to provide my family with a home for me to do Project Ignite Light, but He did. He found it important that my family have a home. God cares about your needs. But you're going to have to let some pride go. And you're going to have to be willing to share it with people, enlist other people to help you. Let's use a job as an example. You need a job. And you're praying, Lord, give me a job. Lord, give me a job. Lord, give me a job. If you are not out there looking for a job, how is God supposed to give you one? Same way with ministry. Some of you are thinking, Lord, you're putting this on my heart, and I don't see any way this is possible for me to do this. When this started, we didn't see any way possible. We were struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. We started it on our dining room table. The first person I shared it with wrote me a check for $125. I wish $125,000. That would have made it so easy. $125 so I could go out and go shopping to buy pajamas. And the money just kept coming the more I shared it. And each time the need got bigger, we watched God provide it. If God is asking you to start a ministry and you don't see any way how, just take that baby step of faith and know that He's going to provide. I want to read for you in closing a letter of what can happen when you trust that God is going to provide your needs. It says, imagine for a moment how frightening it may be for a child when they come to a child advocacy center. Yes, it's a kid-friendly environment, but knowing you're coming to talk with a stranger about the worst things that have happened to you, things you may be so embarrassed about, things you don't want to talk about, it can't be an easy task. Our CAC has been blessed to have Project Ignite Light give to us. We've been given wonderful bags filled with needed supplies, pajamas, blanket, book, flashlight, etc., to hand out to our abused children. For staff, it's been so fun watching the child and parents' faces light up when given the bags. Parents have expressed how thoughtful the bags are and have been shocked at the quality of supplies. In some cases, the children we see come from large families with little financial means. These children are so excited that everything in the bag is theirs, not something they have to share with their siblings. They are so proud carrying the bag back to their parents to show them everything they just received. Other children we see are being removed from their home due to the abuse. Thanks to Project Ignite Light, we're able to give these children a bag with things that can be a support and a comfort while they're in a strange environment. We also see adolescents who are homeless and living in shelters or on the streets. And it gives our staff this amazing feeling being able to hand that teen a bag of knowing they'll have a change of clean clothes and a blanket to keep warm. Here are just a few examples of what we get to experience on a daily basis. A 15-year-old was so excited to have a water bottle that he could bring to use at school. One parent stated when they returned for a follow-up visit, their 6-year-old daughter had attached herself to the blanket in the bag and carried it around everywhere she went. A 4-year-old girl was so excited to get a Tinkerbell pajama and a matching blanket. A 16-year-old now felt safe during the night with his new flashlight. His uncle would come into his room during the night to abuse him. A 3-year-old was so proud of her bag she wanted to carry it back to the waiting room even though she could hardly lift it. A 12-year-old was so scared to be at our clinic he was sitting in his father's lap all cuddled up. After being given the bag, his face lit up and he didn't feel he needed to cling to his dad anymore. He walked out of our clinic looking so proud. And a 12-year-old girl was so upset and sobbing that her new pajamas were being taken as evidence after her father sexually assaulted her. She was ecstatic when given her bag with new pajamas. It's amazing how a simple bag filled with everyday necessities can bring so much joy, excitement, and security to a child. Thank you, Project Ignite Light, for supporting our community's children. This is not possible if I don't share the need. This is not possible if I don't enlist those of you around me. This is not possible if I don't go out and work day in and day out to help make this happen. Some of you need some boldness to begin asking God for God-sized provision. And I pray that you find it.